We had an awesome question come in from a listener about how do you strike a balance between covering episodes that you know your audience is interested in, these hot topic episodes that maybe are great for SEO and that your audience is definitely going to click on, and the topics that you actually want to cover because maybe you feel a responsibility to, or maybe it's just something you love talking about even if you know that topic is not going to be as popular. There is a way to do it, and I am breaking it down in a framework that you can steal and start using right away so that you can keep creating episodes that you're excited to record and that your listeners are excited to hear. Welcome to Insider Secrets to a Top 100 podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Elmer. Let's make your business binge-worthy.
Hey Courtney, this is Amy Castro from the Pet Parent Hotline. I have a question for you. How do you balance creating hot topic episodes that are designed to attract new listeners with ones that aren't as flashy or SEO-friendly, but you feel a responsibility to cover, even if they're not what people want to hear? And how do you push them to listen?
Amy, this is such a great question. I have dealt with this so many times on my own show because there are topics that fascinate me, like voice psychology and listener psychology. And these topics are not at all mainstream in the podcasting world. Even though those are some of my favorite episodes to create, those are not going to be the episodes that one of my listeners is likely to click. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there are topics that are being searched up and down the internet, like what mic should I buy and podcast setup tips and how do I grow my show and how do I get more downloads and all these things that I have absolutely no personal interest in covering. And naturally, as the host of your show, there's going to be topics that you like better than others. So the question then becomes, how do you find the sweet spot between covering stuff you know your audience is interested in and the stuff that you want to cover, or maybe even feel this responsibility to cover and still get people to listen, just like you said. So it's a really smart question to be asking. And if you don't find this balance, what's going to happen is you will either burn out making content that you don't really care about and that doesn't excite you, and you will get bored with it. Or on the flip side of that, you're going to risk potential listeners overlooking really good episodes that they need to hear because the topics that you're passionate about, but maybe aren't as popular, are less likely to get clicked in some cases. But stay tuned because we are going to break down how to actually get those less popular episodes clicked because there is a way to do it. So my short answer to your question is you can and you should cover both for a few reasons that we'll break down here in just a second. How to get people to listen is going to come down to how you sell the value or the listener payoff of the episode, especially on those more obscure but equally relevant topics. So there is this saying in the marketing world, you've probably heard it before, sell them what they want and give them what they need. I first heard that years ago from Marie Forleo, and for a long time I struggled to do this well because my ego said, no, what you need to do, Courtney, is convince them that they need what you know they need. Safe to say that didn't go so well. Kind of like the parent of a toddler who says, here's all the reasons you need to eat your broccoli when what your kid wants is ice cream. No matter how hard you try, it's not going to work. But as soon as you change the context of the broccoli, you'll increase your chances of getting your kid to eat it. My 7-year-old is the only one I know that will chow down a salad at the dinner table. So ask me how I know. It all comes down to the framing. Will eating broccoli help your body grow big and strong because that feels really intangible and will take a really long time? Or will it help you see in the dark tonight like a spy? Which is more immediate, as in you eat the broccoli, it will help you see in the dark tonight. Now, parents listening, I'm required to add a disclaimer here that this doesn't guarantee your kid will magically start eating broccoli, but hey, it's worth a shot. My point is, we as adults are not all that much different than kids. We need to be able to see, number one, how does this help me? Number two, how does this help me now? And number three, how does this help me do or achieve something that I want to achieve now that I haven't been able to achieve yet on my own? So your episode titles, your episode descriptions, your opening teasers inside your episode. This is how you reframe boring or niche topics into something that your listener can't resist clicking and listening to. But just like broccoli, if you don't sell the value up front, well, nobody's going to take a bite. And even your best episodes are going to sit there untouched like cold broccoli on a plate. Ew. Okay. So how do we avoid this? Here's a simple framework that you can use for striking the right balance between topics that you know your audience is interested in and topics that you want to cover, but you know you need to get your audience interested in order to listen. Step one, cover both topics and release all expectations. Because no matter how well you package and present your topics, there's still going to be some episodes that baffle you. Some of them are going to do way better than you ever expected and you thought they would do worse. And some will do way worse that you thought would do way better. And that's all I got for you. The end. See you in the next episode. No, I'm kidding. But truly, release all expectations. And this is great advice that will serve you well for the entirety of your podcasting journey, okay? But if we were to break it down, the simple truth is that every episode needs to sell what your listener wants in your titles and in your descriptions, and then deliver what they need inside the episode itself. Because your job as the host isn't to just choose between, what's a hot topic, let me cover those things, and the deeper episodes that you want to create. It's to learn and develop a skill of positioning both in a way that listeners care about. So with hot topics or highly searched topics, this is going to be simpler to do. You didn't give me specific examples for your show, but if we were to look at my show, an episode titled Steal My Podcast SEO Strategy to rank in the top 5 of search on Apple and Spotify, it's pretty straightforward. Really clear payoff. What's the episode about? Podcast SEO. What's the payoff? Ranking in the top 5 of search on Apple and Spotify. Whereas a topic that's deeper, like understanding your listener psychology, is not something on the surface that would be immediately relevant to you. And that's when you would want to ask, well, okay, for those topics that maybe it's not immediately clear what this topic is going to do for my listener, but it's something I'm really excited about, ask yourself, what will my listener be able to have or do or achieve with this information? Because if I were to position the episode about listener psychology around the payoff of understanding your listener psychology, what will you be able to do when you understand your listener psychology? It might sound something like how to find out what listeners really want from your podcast, or the 3 biggest reasons your listeners tune out during guest episodes. Well, suddenly, that's a whole lot more interesting to my listener whose main goal is to grow their podcast and to keep people listening and to get people listening. And who, by listening to this show, presumably is either about to launch a podcast that they want to grow or a podcast that hasn't grown to the level they want it to yet. So you always want to be framing what you're talking about, whether it's a hot topic or not, around what is the payoff that this is going to give my listener related to the problems that they're trying to solve, which is the reason why they listen to your podcast in the first place. A lot of podcasters think, well, the more I cover hot topics, the more growth I'm going to have. And passion topics, well, you know what? I'm just not going to cover those as much because I always get low clicks on those. It's not going to help me grow. This is only true if you don't know how to package it. Now, the prereq, of course, to doing this well is what you hear me talk about on the show literally all the time, which is being clear on the specific problems that your podcast solves. Yes, even if you have an entertainment or a non-educational type of podcast. And I will link to a specific episode in the show notes, haha, see what I did there, to help you learn how to do this, because I see it all the time, where podcast hosts think they're clear on the problems that they solve, but they're either unknowingly speaking to the wrong problem, or they haven't gotten specific and differentiated enough to stand out from their competition who is also addressing these problems for that group of listeners. Or they're speaking to the problem, but they're not clear on the payoff of what happens for their listener when that problem is solved. So these are all things that you need to understand and know as a podcast host when you're crafting your episodes to help keep people listening. This is literally human behavior 101. Why do we do something? Because there's something in it for me. But I'm not going to do something, spend my time, spend my energy, spend my money doing something if I don't know what immediate payoff that is going to give me. And the same is true for your listeners and for our podcasts as a whole. We have to package it in a way that quote unquote sells our listener on listening. So here's a simple way to break this down when it comes to the content of your podcast. Number 1, use your hot topics as hooks. These are your attraction episodes. Center them around trending topics. Center them around key SEO search phrases that you know your audience is looking for, or highly relevant themes to attract new listeners. Because guess what? When you do that really well, those new episodes are going to be more likely to show up in search, and those are going to be the entry points for a new listener into your podcast. And let's face it, some of your existing listeners are going to have those questions too. So these hot topic episodes, I call them, are going to be the easiest to position and to package because they're the most straightforward. Typically, the problems are clear. It's things your audience is already searching for, and the payoff is clear. But what you want to then do is mix in what I call anchor episodes. These are perspective shifting episodes. This is your thought leadership content. This is content that maybe isn't as mainstream, but that you ultimately want to be known for, or that you want associated with your brand. These are the ones that you know your listener needs to hear, even if they're not aware of it yet. This is going to be the stuff that you need to sell them on based on what they want, and get the click by giving them a clear payoff and delivering on that promise in the episode, while also in the episode teaching them what they really need to know or what they really need to hear. You hear me do this all the time on the podcast. You might click into an episode that talks about, growing your show or getting found through SEO or whatever it might be. But in that episode, I'm actually debunking a lot of beliefs related to that topic that helps to give you a deeper perspective, that shifts your perspective around that helps dispel beliefs that might be keeping you stuck and stuff that maybe, just common misconceptions or whatever in the industry that have actually kept you from being able to achieve the result that you want to achieve. And in doing so, I add depth to that episode. I position myself as that thought leader on that topic because this is something that you maybe haven't heard about before or haven't heard spoken about in this way. And the episode will deliver on whatever I'm promising in the title, because that's the whole point of the episode. And in order to earn your trust and keep your loyalty, I know my episodes need to deliver on what I'm promising you when you clicked into that episode. And so your episodes need to do the same. Okay, so at this point, you've got your hot topics as hooks. You're adding in and weaving in your thought leadership content as your anchor content. And then you want to just sprinkle in the episodes that are on topics that you like and that you want to cover as it relates to your podcast and to the theme of your podcast, okay? Don't be a wellness podcast that suddenly starts talking about parenting. Don't be a parenting podcast that suddenly starts talking about weightlifting. Don't be a podcasting podcast that suddenly starts talking about your favorite restaurants in New Orleans. Interesting? Maybe. But relevant and confusing? Yeah, absolutely. So if I had an episode on, let's say, voice psychology, okay, that's a relevant topic. It's something that I am personally fascinated by. The myriad ways that it affects not just our podcasts, but our conversations, our relationships, our listener retention, our sales, all kinds of aspects of podcast growth and personal growth. But it is not at all a mainstream topic in the podcasting world. So for those episodes, you have to be very sure, number one, that your episode topic is focused. Number two, that it is specific. And number three, that the payoff for your listener is clear. So if I covered something like that here on the show, which I have before, I would need to sell you, quote unquote, sell you on why understanding how you show up to the mic is just as important as what you say in your episodes. And so to do that, I have to show you that payoff in the title itself to earn your click. So for example, the surprising skill that will increase your podcast conversions by 30% or more, which is true, by the way, voice psychology. Okay, so now we're communicating the real value of the episode framed in the language of the listener payoff, which is language that your listener will understand. Because your hot topics, think of them, those are your open doors. That's what's going to get people to step inside of your world. But what's going to keep them there and what's ultimately going to make your show stand out are these perspective-driven episodes that only you, as the thought leader and as the expert, could create. So there's your rotation. One SEO-driven episode, one thought leadership anchor with a clear payoff, and sprinkle in those passion episodes with very strong packaging, and repeat. This mix is going to give you reach, and it's going to give you resonance and relevance with hot topics that bring listeners in and perspective-driven topics that are going to make them stay. And the best part is you can do these as solo episodes. You can bring in guests to cover these topics. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you pay attention to your packaging around the episode. Frame those non-sexy topics around compelling titles, teasers, problem-solving angles, and make sure that that is clear in your packaging around that episode content. The other thing you want to do, and this is really important, this is something that can often get missed, is that you want to market both types of episodes equally. The thought leadership episodes that fall under the anchor episodes and the stuff you want to cover umbrella, and the hot topic episodes. What this is going to do is it's going to allow you to see trends in the data on the back end. So don't go out and promote the heck out of these hot topic episodes that you know your listeners are going to want to click on, and then go radio silent in promoting the ones that you care about, but you don't know if your listeners are going to care about as much. It is very important to market every episode exactly the same way, because then you're controlling that variable. And that way you can pay attention to now what your data is telling you. You've marketed all your episodes equally, and now we're going to look on the back end to see what episodes were a hit, which ones were a miss, which ones maybe needed better packaging or a clearer payoff, to give you a clearer picture of what to double down on as far as it relates to future episode topics. So if you are a pod launch student listening to this, your episode popularity metrics are the ones that you're going to want to pay attention to here. Because at the end of the day, if you take nothing else away from this episode, I want you to remember, you are the host of your podcast, which means that you do not have to only serve up content that your audience wants. In fact, it's the opposite. Your job as the host of your show is to lead your listeners where you ultimately know that you are leading them, where they need to go. And the way to do that is by also sharing thought leadership content that positions you as the expert, giving listeners both what they want and what they need. And when you become a master at striking this balance, guess what? You're never going to feel boxed in by your content or bored with your own show. And speaking of voice psychology, your listeners are going to feel that energy every time they hit play. They will hear literally unconsciously through your voice how much you genuinely care. And that is when you begin to create a podcast that excites you to record, that you want to show up to the mic to, that you are ultimately proud of and proud to share, and that your audience can't get enough of. But here's the thing. This is going to be a whole lot harder if you are not clear on who you're talking to. And I know you hear me say this all the time, but listen, by clear, I don't mean women in their 40s and their 50s or dads who live in the US and Canada. I mean being clear on who they are psychologically. What drives them? What motivates them? What are they afraid of? What problems are they experiencing in their life right now? And how are those showing up that would cause them to seek out your help or the help of any given host in your niche on a podcast in the first place? Because if you don't know on an intimate level how your listener thinks and what they want and what ultimately is going to make them hit play on a podcast or not, and what other shows they're listening to right now to find answers to the problems that you can help them solve, it's going to be really tough to package your episodes in a way that makes them care. So if you want to help more listeners find your show in search and get more of them clicking on your show over the competition, and ultimately convince those listeners to hit play on your episodes because you've done the best job of communicating how those episodes are going to be worth their time no matter what topic you're covering, then come with me to the next episode to learn how to do it so that we can make your business binge-worthy.